Hello, college composition. So today we're really going to start getting into some of the nuts and bolts of how to write a rhetorical analysis, some of the different aspects that you can analyze when it comes to different types of images, right? And specifically in today's reading, it's going to be looking at documentary photos or still photos versus advertisements, so moving images, right? So some of the different um, things that we're going to have to understand. So the ability to analyze visual text rhetorically is important because we are surrounded by glamorous, disturbing images from photojournalism, internet, billboards, newspapers, television, magazines, images that, as one critic has stated, have designs on us. Yet we may not fully understand how they affect us. So, and that is really important to always remember that every different kind of text that you see, and it doesn't matter. I know this particular reading is going to put that into context of documentary photos and advertisements, but any text that you see, it has a design on you, whether you know it or not, right? Whether it's a bumper sticker, a billboard, whether it's a poster, anything that you're seeing, an ad on TV, all of it, it all has some sort of purpose behind it that it's trying to manipulate you in some way, shape, or fashion. Now, with that being said, every different text has its own target audience, right? And so there might be a lot of times where you don't fall into the target audience, the intended target audience. So it's not very effective on you, right? You might see a poster or an advertisement and you don't pay attention to it for more than a split second, right? Because it doesn't appeal to you. But it still has some sort of design on some target audience out there somewhere. And that's really important to acknowledge that everyone, whether it fails or succeeds, they all have a design on it. So that's this kind of first exercise the reading has kind of has us looking at four different photographs, looking at different what stands out in each photo, what's the dominant impression conveyed in each of them. Are they staged or candid? And you can really look at all these four if you really want. I'm just going to kind of look at this for the sake of this video, this one, because there's a lot of stuff to cover. This particular top left photo right here is um, zoomed in a little too far. Is showing the issue of immigration, and it's showing this kind of what's supposed to be the border wall, or what it's saying is. So wait, what's its caption? So wall between Tijuana, Mexico, and the United States. So it's implying that this side right here is Mexico and over here is America, right? Because these are the immigrants trying to climb over the wall. Now, if we were to rhetorically analyze this, some of the different things we could talk about in this particular photo. We could talk about the kind of the idea of what does the Mexican side look like. It's kind of this treacherous cliff, right, with dead plants, graffitied walls, right? Because it's implied that anytime you're in a place where there's a lot of unknown graffiti, that type of stuff, it makes you feel uncomfortable, right? It makes you kind of feel like, oh, is there, sketchy people around, that kind of a thing. So that's having kind of a subtle effect on us. Um, if you kind of look over here, you kind of see like a city, buildings, or what is a city over here in this corner. And some people I've seen in the past rhetorically analyze this photo saying it's definitely staged because why would you have, like, people wouldn't climb over the wall next to a large city in broad daylight. They'd wait till it was nighttime. Other people have tried to say this is not candid, this is staged um, for several reasons. Why would you pick this particular set of wall, and what would you do? If it was candid, where's this camera positioned, right? We're obviously up higher a little bit. Are you just going to sit there and wait for days, weeks, potentially for people to cross right at the right point at for your shot, right? So there's that suggestion that this is not actually candid, that this is staged. Some people have looked at this thematically, as in, oh, in America, the sky's the limit, right? Literally, okay, you can go over here and climb mountains. The sky's the limit in America. And that's what's appealing to immigrants. Where over here on this side of the wall, it just kind of goes down. There's a cliff. It's treacherous. There's nowhere to go but up, like going towards America. There's something in the world of photography called the rule of thirds that is appealing to the eye. You kind of have whether that's horizontally or vertically, cutting the photograph into thirds. This one is a pretty clear example of the horizontally. What's appealing? So this bottom third, you kind of have, okay, what is Mexico? This middle third, you have the wall with the immigrants, and the top third, you have the mountains, or what's supposed to represent America. So there's a lot of different ways in which people could break down this particular photograph. But I think it's pretty clear to say that this was not candid. It was very staged, and the photographer had a particular eye for certain things that he or she wanted to include in the photograph. And if you want, you can always look at these other photographs also on your own inside of the PDF, break them down for whether they're staged or candid, the different aspects of them, camera angles, lighting, how they're costumed or how people are positioned, all of that kind of stuff. So, let's see. So kind of going forward a little bit, they also go in our reading, they talk a little bit about 9/11, these different photographs. They kind of break them down a little bit. They talk about how this one taken from a faraway distance seems more kind of apocalyptic in a sense, like, wow, is this even real? Is this actually happening? But it's kind of impersonal in a sense. It creates a whole different feeling than, say, this, which is a photograph taken from ground level of firefighters kind of carrying something. I think it's some sort of wreckage. Some people have looked at this, they think it's a body. I think it's a little unclear what it is, but you're seeing their faces. It's much closer in on the actual firefighters. So you're seeing it's building more of a personal story. You get this feeling of, wow, that's what true heroism is, and that's what bravery and courage is, right? Whereas this one, you're almost like in awe. You're not having those feelings of bravery and courage, right? But it's the same event. It's taken from a different angle. So there's a lot that you can rhetorically analyze in still photographs like this. The angle of vision and or degree of advocacy. Basically, we touched on those in previous video. Angle of vision is unintended bias, where degree of advocacy is intended bias. So essentially, when you look at a photograph, you have to kind of take into account that the photographer, just like the writer of any good work, the photographer has a bias. Whether they know it or not, they have a bias, what they're trying to do, that they're trying to affect the audience, right? In what they're trying to do thematically, whether it's class, race agendas, political agendas, all of those different things, they get to control what's in front of the camera. So remember that. You're only seeing what they want you to see. That's a really powerful bias that people don't really think about photographers, right? And people that create or movie makers, filmmakers, those kind of things. You're only seeing what they want you to see. So always keep that in mind. They're kind of saying to be like, you can create kind of any truth depending on focus, angle, that kind of stuff. They use the example, think of multiple cameras tracking a football game and replaying a touchdown from different angles, often creating a very different impression of the play. And that's right. You sometimes you're watching that, sporting event, and then it's showing 4 different camera angles where you're like, nah, that player's out of bounds. But then it shows the one camera shot where you're like, oh, wait a minute. Even though there's 4 that say he's out of bounds, that one, they're probably in bounds, right? So that's kind of interesting take on that, right? That goes over some different ways in which photographs are manipulated. Staging images, again, you're only seeing what they want you to see. So, and that goes with this third bullet, selecting images or parts of images, so cropping out what they don't want, or staging images, putting what they do want into their shot. Altering images, airbrushing, reshaping body parts, that's a big deal in our culture. There's probably not a celebrity that you're seeing in a movie or in a commercial that hasn't been airbrushed, or they haven't artificially slimmed them down or made them look more muscular, those kinds of things using special effects. But yet, a lot of times the viewer thinks that that is an accurate depiction of who that person, that celebrity actually is. They really are that strong. They really are that beautiful. But really, it's special effects, altering of images. This is a big one, mislabeling images. So look at the words, right? Captions, anything, even words within on a poster, all that stuff. No matter what it is, if you're seeing words being used, definitely, definitely take a look at those words, right? And how they are misrepresenting whatever they are. I think of a classic example. Car commercials, you always see like they're, a lot of people don't pay attention to car commercials because they're not in the target audience of somebody that needs a car. Um, but if they are, sometimes you'll see, like these crazy, oh, come, get this awesome, $100,000 car and only pay $200 a month, you know, if you qualify, right? And they have that little asterisk, right? With 0%, interest and all these things, right? All these ridiculous, like, wow, that's too good to be true. But nobody reads the little asterisk, right? At the bottom of the screen where it's saying like you must have a credit score of 1,000 or better. That's impossible, right? There's no such thing as a credit score of 1,000 or higher, right? That doesn't exist. But advertisers are legally able to do that because technically they're telling you in their wording that what they're telling you is not true. They're technically telling you that it's not true. So it's just a gimmick to get people into the door and say, oh, we heard about this special deal. And they say, oh, yeah, let's run your credit check. And it's a whole, their employees are trained to do this. And then they're like, oh, sorry, your credit's not high enough. Well, of course it's not. You can't have 1,000 credit score. It's impossible. So wording is really important on images, right? And you can find some funny stuff like that in commercials and in images. If you read the asterisks, you can find some really funny things that advertisers do. Constructing images, of course, this is a big deal in the world of celebrity where they will take the head of one celebrity and put it onto another celebrity's body or a whole different body, that type of thing. And so just making sure for that, right? How do we know that it's real or not? There's this new, in today's day and age, deepfake. Deepfake videos are a big deal because technology's gotten so good, they can create videos of basically fake videos of anybody saying anything, right? And there's a whole demographic of people who didn't grow up with technology. I think young people are much more savvy to it, but older generation, so think your parents or your grandparents' generation, they didn't grow up in that world. They don't have the critical thinking skills to question a deep fake video. They just think it's real. Nope, I saw that person said it. I saw the video. They said it, right? I saw it with my own eyes. And in a see it to believe it society, that's a really powerful tool that a lot of companies use, a lot of news broadcasts use, American news, uses deep fake videos. They create videos and falsify people's images. It's a big deal. This over here on pages 2 of the PDF on our website, pages 271 through 273, it gives you this chart. So if you're kind of stuck in writing your rhetorical analysis, think about, here's some questions to help you get unstuck on these pages, whether it's different things that you could focus on that you might rhetorically analyze in an image or an advertisement: framing, lights, focus, right? Color, those kinds of things. And if you're like, yeah, I really do want to analyze color in my advertisement or my photo, maybe some of these questions can kind of help you get unstuck in your writing process. So again, pages 271 through 273 on the PDF of the Allen and Bacon Guide to Writing. If you have the actual copy of the Allen and Bacon Guide to Writing, you're looking at pages 233 through 235 of the actual book, the actual textbook. Those can really help you. They provide a pretty good rhetorical analysis of this particular photograph of the Berlin Wall. If you want to take a look at it on what a really good rhetorical analysis looks like, and they break it down in terms of different color, the focus, and how these heads are blurred. They talk about the color on the wall. They talk about what's behind the wall up here in the shot, the cranes. They talk a lot about this young person sitting on top of the wall and how he represents the American ideal of democracy, because on the other side is communism, and riding the wall like a cowboy, that kind of thing. I even usually go farther, looking at, again, if we're looking at cultural context clues, this is going to kind of say, okay, 1989, one of the world's most popular films was Grease. And so if they really want to have their rhetorical analysis of fascination with American democracy and American ideals and belief systems, you could even look into pop culture, say, oh, wow, Grease popularized the black leather jacket. This young man is wearing that as well. Let's see. Then we'll skip past the paintings. We want to jump into some of their advertisement. Starting on page 279 of the PDF, they start talking about advertisements. Again, they kind of emphasize looking at the words, right? Looking at the ads words, also called the copy. That's really important aspect to look at. Let's see. They start talking a little bit about media landscape in a little bit, which is really important, actually. They break down these ads, or they invite us to break them down, and how we're looking at genre, right? This is a billboard, so people are driving past it. They don't have very long to look at it, so this is really effective. And Geico always has really brilliant advertising campaigns. They have the word saving with a pile of money right here, which is like a quick, it sticks with the person just driving past. Subconsciously, they're personifying money by giving it these little cute eyes. They're personifying it. They're saying easy, right? They have all these really simple subliminal messaging going on here. The colors are really easy to see, right? So they would argue this is an effective ad by Geico. They would argue, on the other hand, this is an ineffective ad. This is on a bus, so you're going to have, 3 or 4 seconds max to try to grab what this is all about. And the first thing that your eyes are drawn to is okay, there's socks and sandals, and it says sandals and socks guy, and there's, oh wait, the bus drove away, right? But even if you did catch it, and then you're like, insurance, and you're left with, wait, what does socks and sandals guy have to do with insurance, right? Even if the bus was stopped and you were able to just take this in, we're a lot like you, a little different. Insurance, socks and sandals, it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? So somebody probably lost a job, if not multiple people, whoever was on this particular panel of employees that came up with this advertisement and decided to put it on a bus, right? That's just not very effective. So let's see. What the most important question when you're breaking down anything, they're going to put it in terms of advertisements, and that's fine. I would even make it more global. Any text that you're ever look at in any regard, or even if you're creator of a text, you're creating one. This is the first question you should always try to figure out. Who's the target audience, right? At the outset, marketers identify one or more target audiences for their product or service. They often use sophisticated psychological research to identify segments of the population who share similar values, beliefs, aspirations, and then subdivide these categories according to age, gender, region, income level, ethnicity, so forth. So they're trying to introduce the idea that, let's say, if you're creating an ad for, a 65-year-old who shops at Walmart is going to be very different, if the same company, let's say, than a teenage skateboarder, right? You're going to have different advertisements to appeal to very different crowds. And so trying to identify this. And when you're rhetorically analyzing, this is really important. When you're going to rhetorically analyze for effectiveness, you better be nailing the target audience. And and have good reason for why you believe that that's a target audience. And a big way you can determine who the target audience is media landscape, which is what they talk about, right? In this section. So it says, while identifying their target audience, marketers also consider how much terrain they can afford to occupy an enormous media landscape. So billboards, newspapers, magazines, mailing lists, internet pop-ups, mobile ads, TV, radio commercials, posters, naming rights for sports stadiums, t-shirts, coffee mugs, product placements at films, sandwich boards, banners carried across the sky by airplanes, right? Each of these has to be purchased. And in today's day and age, media landscape is a big deal. And especially this idea of, in our modern day, we have something called, our digital footprint that I talk about. And it's kind of crazy how you can be having a conversation with your friend about, about something, and that particular topic or items related to that topic start popping up on like your social media sites that you're going and seeing later, and you're like, wait a minute, I was just talking about that with my friend. Why is this all of a sudden on my computer, on my social media page? And it's kind of creepy in a way, but it's true. And you, whether you know it or not, you have your own digital footprint out there, and we have listing devices around us all the time, and they build that digital footprint for you. So out there, and sometimes they get it wrong. Sometimes you'll have stuff popping up on your, your social media, or that you're like, why am I seeing an ad for that? Right. So sometimes they get it wrong, because it's all algorithms, those kinds of things. But supposing you're having a conversation, with your friend about a particular topic, advertisers have different advertisements for all of these different things, for your age, your ethnicity, your gender, all of these things. They've built different advertisements that are going to be plugged in to your social media to try to appeal to whatever your belief systems are even better with your digital footprint. So media landscape's a big deal in especially in rhetorically analyzing effectiveness. That's a big deal. This kind of goes into media landscape a little bit. This is one of the best media for reaching target audience. I always think of, they start talking about daytime TV. I think about Game Show Network. If you ever, my dad watches a lot of Game Show Network. And so whenever I go over to his house and he has that on, like all the commercials are always these like medicines for like old people about like, oh, does your back hurt and try this, and then the next commercial is like Claritin whatever, right? Like it's all of it is like geared towards old people, which is pretty apparent. Okay, they've identified that it's mostly old people that watch the Game Show Network, right? So that gets into some media landscape a little bit. Brand image, because this section goes a little bit into how does an advertiser create branding or loyalty. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to align their company or their product with a particular set of qualities, values, and imagery, right? That lives inside the head of targeted consumers. They don't just want you to buy Nikes rather than Reeboks, but to also see yourself as a Nike kind of person. So whatever values Nike stands for, I always bring up Wrangler jeans commercials. They have Brett Favre as a spokesman who kind of has this, I'm Brett Favre, and I'm, because he's like on the bottom, the little wording, talking about important wording is like played 280 straight games in the NFL or whatever, right? Or legendary pro quarterback, those kinds of things. And he's playing like backyard football with his buddies in like the dirt, and they're like tackling each other in the dirt, and they're getting up all happy, like it doesn't hurt or anything, right? So it's giving off these, it's not saying directly, but it's giving off these ideas like, oh, you're going to be tough and you're going to live this rugged, like tough guy life if you wear like Wrangler jeans, right? And so every company tries to identify, what do we want to stand for? Even if they don't in actuality stand for those things, they need to subliminally have qualities, fields of values to their brand so people will become loyal to it. This is a really important concept for rhetorical analysis, because I think the last one we go into in this video, the mirrors and windows effect. All right, so um, it's a psychological motivational strategy to associate a product with a target audience's dreams, hopes, fears, desires, wishes, often subconscious, of course. So the mirror effect is referring to the way in which the ad mirrors the target audience's self-image, promoting identification with the ad's image. So the target audience has to say, I'm part of the world that this ad speaks to. I have this problem, pimples or whatever, right? There's all these ideas of like, when you watch a commercial, they want their consumer, their target audience to say, you know what? I do relate to that. Like, yeah, my cell phone service is terrible. Like, I'm all of a sudden I'm listening to this ad, right? So it's common ground. Same as when we talk about logos, building common ground. The mirror effect is a visual representation of that. The window effect provides visions of a future, so promises of who we will become or what will happen if we align ourselves with the brand. Classic mirror and window effect advertisements and commercials are anything that does a before and after. They use Proactive, which is an anti-acne. That's a classic mirror window effect where it's saying here before, here's this person that has tons of pimples and they're not smiling, right? And then in the after using our product, all of a sudden they don't have any acne and they're smiling and the lighting's better and it's, by the way, probably airbrushed. So weight loss things do the same mirror effect when, so those are just a couple of types of advertisements that really use this technique quite a bit. So that's something to keep in mind too. And some commercials just use one or the other, right? Or they're more subliminal. They're not as in your face as a before and after, right? There's a lot of like financial investment, whatever that one that draws like the green line around, right? And the person's walking and they're following the green line and it's leading them to a better future, right? There's some mirror effect that's like, they're not telling you this is who you are, but there's aspects that you identify with, right? They look like a normal person living a normal life, like going to work, but they're following this green line that leads them to like this better future and more money, and they're really happy when they meet the investment broker, right? So, so there's different ways, whether it's subliminal or overt in your face, that advertisers use the mirror window effect to a great extent. So the rest of this reading is really it's using Geico and talking. It's kind of breaking down Geico and why it's successful. A lot of their ad campaigns are successful. They go into rhetorical analysis of the company is successful because their target audience is primarily people that grew up with animated characters like Sesame Street, E.T., and now they're at the age where they need insurance, so it feels more comfortable to have an animated character, makes them feel better about buying insurance. It's kind of interesting. But hopefully all of this, I know it's a lot of information, it's a lot of different components that you can look into when you're doing a rhetorical analysis, but hopefully some stand out, give or take, whatever it is when you're performing your own rhetorical analysis. Perhaps some of these concepts apply better than others. Other than that, I'll see you next week, College Comp. Till then, take care.